Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Chop Talk. I am your host, Chopadong, and we are brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS, from NFL to MMA to PGA to MLB. A website that has 20 coaches, 20 contributors, 1,500 plus members, always chatting DFS 24/7, looking to help you be a better DFS player. Tools, coaching, optimizers, projections, all of that content is yours for one low monthly subscription of $40 a month. You use coupon code CHOP. You wind up with a $35.99 grandfathered price for the lifetime of your membership within DFS Army, no matter what our prices do going forward. We are very, very, very committed to delivering personality in an impersonal world, something that I think that people are looking for these days. They're looking for community, something to belong to, something to be a part of, something that cheers us on when we win, consoles us when we lose. There's nothing wrong with losing if you had the correct plays. You hear me talk poker a lot. It's like, I had aces, you had queens, you won. Whatever. Aces are going to win most of the time. They just didn't happen today. You know what? Sometimes I play aces and they lose. Sometimes I play queens and they win. Just ask my hockey lineups. But the bottom line is the bottom line. This is a community that teaches you how to play, how to build better lineups, how to build fundamentally sound lineups going forward, and is going to make you a better DFS player. So follow the link in the comment section of the video. When it comes to the coupon code CHOP, use that obviously when it's appropriate when you're signing up. And let's dive into a little bit of Chop Talk today. There's not a lot of baseball stuff. We're kind of in a weird holding pattern right now where everybody has some data and everybody's kind of picking through some stuff, and we've got 2 days to sit on our hands and just go nuts. I would recommend, I saw something out on Twitter yesterday, and if you search my bio and my feed, you scroll down a little bit, you'll find it. Do it quick before it gets buried. But I recommended that you follow a certain guy because for his account, it's pretty good. It's a baseball account. It doesn't do much on the non-baseball season, but he put out 6 good tips. And from memory, they were very focused on how to work opening day. And I wish I had the guy's name in front of me. Sorry, I can't give the direct shout out, but it was very, very impactful for me yesterday because he mentioned things like, okay, it's opening day. You've got several days to prepare. Use that time. Another thing that he mentioned was study the April and March splits. Some guys get off to slower starts than others. Know who those pitchers are. Study the day-night splits because these all 9 of our games on the main are day games. And if they're day games, then you might want to know if certain pitchers have better, results during the day. I'll tell you this, as a St. Louis Cardinals guy, Tommy Pham is having issues with his contacts again, and that is something that affects, apparently he can't see as well during the day as he can during the night. So being a day game, that might kind of make you look into Tommy Pham a little bit deeper. Not that you were really going to use him all that heavily against, Syndergaard or whoever they're going to draw in that Mets rotation, but it's something to look for when you pick up these little tidbits. It's something to file away back in the little bitty memory banks and hold on to that because we got a long season ahead of us, and we're going to want to see if those numbers start. Was this just something that Chop blew out of his butt, or was this something that actually has some merit to it? Because I heard it from a beat writer, and I trust the beat writers here locally as you should trust yours. And that's another beauty of the DFS Army is we compile all of our guys into real-time Slack chat channels that are talking about their local knowledge and giving us some of that inside track, that inside information. That's something you will never hear me talk about out on Twitter unless it's my own local knowledge, because I'm not outing those sources and I'm not outing those guys' information because we have VIPs that are paying for that information, and that stuff deserves to stay locked up. But anyway, let's jump in and talk a little bit of hockey today before we really roll into baseball here over the next couple of days. Maybe pull, like I said, a little bit of double duty where we're going to get, a little bit of NHL and a little bit of MLB. The first place we look for, you can see the goalies here, but how do we spot them? We go to Las Vegas or VegasInsider.com, and we start looking for these bigger favorites, and we're looking at the games. Look at this. We're leaning on the 6s a lot today. I have no need for a 5.5 leaning to the under. Now, will it blow up and go 8-4? Possibly, but to be honest with you, I don't trust it. I'm not looking at it, and I need to see a line on this game. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things I spot for goalies. Minus 150 is okay. The 6 is not. Minus 120, not big enough. Minus 210 is okay. The sixth, okay, so I'll look at Murray if he's the projected goalie in Pittsburgh. Boston, Winnipeg. I mean, I don't trust Boston's offense can be pretty good, so I don't know. St. Louis and San Jose. Jake Allen is hot, white hot right now. He's only given 4 goals in his last 4 games. He's still reasonably priced. I don't. San Jose's offense can be a little bit dangerous, but St. Louis is pushing hard to hold that 8th spot and final spot in the playoffs. They've got their defense, it looks like, shored up fairly well, and it looks like now that the goalie's standing on his head again, it looks like they may only be giving 1 or 2 goals per game for the foreseeable future. Jake Allen got hot last year at the All-Star break and was the best goalie or one of the top 2 or 3 goalies in the league the rest of the way. Now, he looks like he's showing signs of that again. His positioning's good. He looks quick as hell, and I've seen him flop on some shots where I don't know how he made the saves that he made. When he starts doing that kind of stuff, gets a little bit of confidence rolling, the dude's a head case. He's an absolute head case. But when he's going well, he goes really, really well. GPP goalie tonight, probably the best GPP potential on the slate, in my opinion. Now, we scroll down a little bit more, and we'll find the cash goalies hiding down in here. Nashville, probably not. Minnesota can score. I do like Pekka Rinne, but it's a high price to pay for what could be, a low-scoring game that could get eked out 2-1, and I don't know whose favor that might go in. Both teams are vying for playoff position, home ice advantage type stuff. Minnesota may actually be struggling to get into playoffs, so you're going to get their best because if anything, they're kind of at the bottom end of that division in terms of whether or not they're in the playoffs or in a wild card spot or on the outside looking in. I don't know the standings that well right now, but I do know that they're not, Nashville's got the number 1 probably locked up. So if anybody's going to come out flat, it might be Nashville, but I don't anticipate that. It's a division rival game heading into the playoffs. Philadelphia and Dallas, I'm not into that game really as far as the goalie's concerned. Columbus and Edmonton, not into that game as far as Bobrovsky on the road is concerned. I mean, you got pretty hot Edmonton 1 rolling, which we'll see here in a second. When I look at Anaheim and Vancouver, I see the -215 on the road. Look, it's growing too, and the 5.5's leaning on the under because Vancouver can't really score. So the way I see this is Gibson is your cash goalie tonight, period, end of story. When we go in and we rank up those other teams and we look for the goals for and goals against, if you remember, we rank those teams, we click goals for once, we click goals against twice, we rank them on a piece of paper, and what we find out is New Jersey's in a good spot to score on Carolina. We find that the Ottawa and New York Islanders game, 6.5 on the over, could go either way, could be a shootout, but Ottawa has a hot running line right now. Both these teams are giving up goals in the bottom 5 in the league over, let's say, the last 3 weeks or so. So it's not like we're getting a lot of defense in this game, and when you have 2 crappy defenses, that's one of the DFS commandments. When you have 2 crappy defenses, a lot of times what you get is a lot of offense. So that we need to bear our mind. We need to kind of have our eye tuned into this game here, especially. Pittsburgh and Detroit. Detroit's been scoring a little bit lately, but the odds are heavily on Pittsburgh to do the scoring here. So I'm going to be looking at the Penguins' offense. Boston and Winnipeg is interesting. Winnipeg is allowing the fewest goals over that last 3-week sample. That puts Boston in kind of a shitty spot, being that Boston has fallen out of the top 10 in terms of scoring goals for themselves. So I'm not real high on Boston. I don't know where I stand necessarily on Winnipeg. It's kind of iffy, so I'm going to be looking for better spots, if that makes sense. St. Louis and San Jose, again, I don't know where I stand on that one. I'd like to see a little bit of a line come out to at least put my head, kind of open the door for me to start thinking about the game a little bit better. I know that San Jose has scored 3rd most goals in the last 3 weeks, but St. Louis has allowed the 2nd fewest. Not a good spot. And like I said, Jake Allen's standing on his head. I'm kind of leaning towards St. Louis in this one, but I don't necessarily like the St. Louis offense either. They don't score a lot of goals, and San Jose's been okay defensively, so it's not really like a soft spot for the St. Louis Skaters either. It may just be kind of an Allen and done situation, and I don't think that it's safe enough for cash unless you're really in the mood to take a chance. And I think Gibson's a lot safer cash goalie tonight. Minnesota and Nashville can be a complete fade for me, even though they've got a couple of scoring lines. Just not really a fan of it one way or the other. I'm just thinking this one has a real low mucker grinder type of feel to it. If it goes 6-5, I can live with it. Hopefully not too many people jump in there for DFS purposes and end up, if it does do that, end up burying me. But I just don't see it being an offensive game. Philly and Dallas, I do see being an offensive game. Dallas has not been scoring, but they've been giving some goals up. That puts Philly in a good spot because Philly has been scoring. But at the same time, Philly's been giving goals up, and so that does actually give a little bit of a bump to Dallas. So you might lean on that top line, Ben, Radeloff, and Sagan, as part of your offensive core tonight, or at least as a one-off. When I look at Philadelphia, we'll talk a little bit more about value, but Philly's the fourth most scoring team, or the fourth most potent offense in the league right now, going against Dallas, which is 22nd in giving goals up. So Dallas is giving them up. That puts Philly in a good spot, which means top two lines are probably in play. If you want to do the matchups on left wing lock, you can search and see which line goes against which line if you can find a weakness in that offense. I don't have time to deal with that today, so I'm going to kind of keep it short. I do like Columbus tonight. Columbus has a couple of different line combinations that are rolling. Right now, that Columbus 2 with Boone Jenner on it has scored 12 goals in 10 games. The Columbus 1 line has scored 5 goals in 1 game, or in 10 games, and then they've inserted a different guy up on that top line from the Panarin, Atkinson, and Dubois line, and that has also scored a few goals in 10 games as well. So I kind of like the spot for the 1 and the 2 in this game. Edmonton's more of a kind of a middling team when it comes to defense, so it's not like they're great. They're not bad, but they're not great. Being that Columbus carries the favorite here, I kind of am leaning on Columbus tonight. I don't like leaning on road teams, but that's kind of where I'm headed. Now, I don't mind some McDavid or some Ratty, somebody like that in Edmonton coming back, but I'm not probably going to stack Edmonton against Columbus because Columbus has allowed the third fewest goals in the league over the past 3 weeks, and that tells me they're playing well defensively, they're skating well, and I don't really want to attack that situation. Down here in Anaheim, I don't want to attack that situation really with anything either. That top line of Anaheim's cooled off a little bit. They're not cold, they've cooled off a little bit. They could explode tonight, and there will be people that have them, and that's fine. I may have a little bit of exposure to either a Rakel or a Getzlaf or somebody like that, but I'm not probably going to have a ton of exposure to that game in general, other than dramatic pause there, whatever, other than Gibson the goalie. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to be kind of quiet, and I'm breaking up a little bit here because I'm yawning, and I've got 2 cups of coffee in me, so I don't really know what to tell you other than that. When we go to left wing lock, you know how we like to look for the back-to-backs. This is a big one. When we see that the Devils are getting back-to-back on Carolina and Scott Darling, who has just been atrocious when he's been in goal, that puts the Devils in a good spot. We see that we're on back-to-backs here with the Islanders and the Senators. We already know there's no defense there, so we got tired defenses, or tired lack of defense on top of it. That game really, really could explode. So you're going to want some access to that game. Several other games have some back-to-backs. We're looking for confirmed likely goalies, and I'm not really seeing much that surprises me or that comes out of nowhere. Not seeing a ton of the backups or anything. So, kind of not too worried about it. When we go into the skaters, this is where you find the line production to see who's scoring. This is where you find the line matching to see who goes up against which line. So when I go to the 10-game sample, I'll tell you what, let's trick it up. Let's go to the 3-game sample. Let that one load up here, and then what we'll do, kick that down to the 25, and we see that Ratty line's up there in the last 3 games. So is the Columbus line. A couple of Carolina lines. I'm not really sure about Zykov. Zykov's a big one. I'm not really sure about Carolina going up against New Jersey, but it's hard to argue when they've got 2 hot lines rolling. Winnipeg 1. Top line in Pittsburgh. There's the top line in Philly. We already know they're in a good spot. Detroit is scoring a little bit. There's another Carolina line. Carolina's got 3 lines rolling. Look at that. That warrants a little bit of consideration. It really does. I got to admit, if they're running that hot, definitely going to have to look a little bit deeper into them. So we may add them to the list. I definitely like the Zykov guy. I know that everybody likes him, everybody knows, everybody owns him, but in cash games, he's pretty much that bingo square that you need to use because everybody else is going to have him. And if he goes off like he's been going off, a couple of goals in the last few games, then you need to have him or else you're going to pay the price. And he affords you, obviously, a lot of other things to go in search of when you're looking. So if we're going to dive into a little bit of player talk, Actually, let's dive into the goalie talk. The goalies that I'm looking at, like I said, were Matt Murray. So when I scroll down here and I show you the game log, Murray's a little bit up and down, as you can see by some of his lower scores, and there's not a lot over 30. And the stuff that I look for also when I'm looking is how deep in the game log is it? Is it recent? Is he hot? Or is it old news and he's kind of cooled off? In this case, Murray's kind of cooled off. I mean, he had the concussion or whatever in there too. So, don't think that I don't understand that part of it. But you got 2 duds recently and nothing over 30 recently. Even though he's in a great spot to get the win, we know Detroit's been scoring some lately, so it's not like Detroit's just going to roll over and die. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Murray right now when he's only 6-4 in his last 10 and he's put up a couple of duds and they were recent. It kind of spooks me. So I would look for another direction. To show you Jake Allen, this one, it's intriguing, and I'm almost tempted to do it in cash. He's over 20 his last 4 games. He's got a little bit over 30. He's coming up a little bit. But look at how close he was to shutouts in his last 3. I misspoke. I said 4 goals in his last 4. I meant 3 in his last 3. His record is 7-3. He's got 2 duds, 6 games over 20, 2 games over 30. I expect it to continue to get better before it gets worse. And when I look down here, there's 1 game at 4, a couple games at 3, and the others are right back at the 2s and the 1s. Now you get back into here where he was in his head, and you're going to start seeing a lot of 2s and 3s and whatever. You can see he has clearly settled down in that last stretch, especially recently. So good sign for St. Louis. Good GPP goalie. St. Louis can shut you out. Jake Allen can certainly shut you out, even if you are a little bit hotter rolling team. I mean, go ask Columbus. Again, he ended their streak. Where did Gibson go? There he is, third most expensive. We can look at the other 2 just for comparison, but what I'm looking at when I look at him is a lot of wins in a short period of time. I'm looking at games over 20 and duds, and I'm seeing quite a few up close to 20, quite a few over 20, and then a few in the 40s with only 2 duds in there. And again, the 40s are deep in the game log, though. The recent stuff, there is 140, and then the recent stuff's not even 20. So, and that may be a result of being on the road. But with the minus 215 favorite on the road, Vegas has given him a lot of love. I think that he is the best goalie, the safest goalie on the slate for the price. Now, when I look only $100 more, if I've got $100 to pick apart when I'm done with my construction, and I like my skaters. Rennie's been not so great lately. I don't know if he'll get back on this track or not. I don't know that Minnesota's a team I'm going to want to test it with because Minnesota hung 3 on him before. The last game out. So Rennie maybe not the most safe goalie on the slate tonight. Looks like Hellebuck had a bad game most recently, 12 points, but I mean he was on a good roll. So maybe Hellebuck's in play. He's very, very expensive, but again, going up against Edmonton, I don't know. I don't know if I want to see Edmonton come cruising, or Columbus go cruising into Edmonton. Just don't know. So those are GPP goalies to me. Your cash goalie is still Gibson. When I look into the research station and I start picking out the players, I already know the offenses I'm targeting. New Jersey, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, a little bit of New York Islanders, Winnipeg maybe, Philly, Columbus, and maybe Anaheim just because I fear the hammer a little bit. So I'm going to go picking through these guys and I'm going to start looking for who's producing and what lines they're going up against that are terrible. And here's what I'm finding for you. Since I'm not sharing that with you, for free today, that's my little tease to you. What I'm going to tell you is when I look at the players, I will throw some picks at you. My list right now, in terms of, I'm not going to tell you who I'm favoring, but I'll tell you who is on the general player pool. When it comes to center, Hischier, Tavares, Duquesne, Crosby, Brassard, third line, you got to go digging through the game logs to find that third line in Pittsburgh, but it's in a pretty good spot. Sagan and McDavid. When I look at the wings, it's a lot more to pick from, so I'll probably be pulling my value out of the wings. I didn't put Zykov on there. I should add him, but Hall, Palmieri, Lee, Eberle, Zingle, Hoffman, Hornquist, Hagelin, Kessel, Sheary, Connor, Pasternak maybe, Garreau, Konechny for sure, Radulov, Atkinson for sure, Boone Jenner maybe, Ty Ratty probably. These are some names that I'm looking at, and these are names that I'm going to be digging into with our guys in the Slack channels today in the VIP side of the DFS Army. On defense, I really have a very, very short list. A lot of these guys are overpriced, and if I want to throw the Lees and the Halls and the Kessels and those guys in my lineups, along with maybe some Sagan and some or some Tavares or something like that, maybe a Crosby. I want to throw access to those guys in my lineups tonight. I'm really going to have to chimp out on defense, and to chimp out, I'm going to have to keep a small list and a cheap list. I'll have Gibson as my goalie most likely, so I probably won't use Edler out of Vancouver. But, man, he's in a good spot. So if you're not using him, if you're not using Gibson, I would suggest paying up a little bit for Edler. Edler's got 57 shots on goal and blocked shots in his last 10 games. He's got a pretty hard floor of about 8 points. So that's pretty good for 5,300. He'd provide anything in terms of assists or a goal. He might be factoring into that. If Vancouver scores a couple of goals, he might pick up an assist or maybe even pick up the goal. And that would just shoot past value for you in a heartbeat. What I'm looking at personally is Vatanen in New Jersey to get access to New Jersey, which maybe takes me off of Hall, Hischier, or Palmieri and just leave it as a one-off and then move on. But I'm really looking forward to Ryan Pulock in that New York Islanders game. I may pair him with an Eberle or a Lee. I may pair him with Tavares. I don't really know where I'm going to go with that yet. But at 4,400, you get 3 goals, 6 assists in your last 10 with 49 shots on goal and blocked shots. You're not going to beat that value. And he's never highly owned, which amazes me. And I'm not saying this so that he will be highly owned because I'd like to keep that as our little secret for a little while. But that's kind of where I'm going with this when it comes down to today. I don't know where I would start, but I would probably slide Pulock in there first. I'd probably slide Vatanen in there next. And I already mentioned Gibson as the goalie. That's probably where I'm going to start my production. I'm sitting at 6,000. So if I grabbed a Zykov at 3,600, I can have my way with the rest of the lineup most likely. If I grabbed, even threw in on top of that, somebody who's also fairly cheap, a Connor out of Winnipeg, or, maybe Ratty. Let's throw Ratty in there and really screw some people up. If that was my Edmonton exposure and now I'm out, the problem is I've only got 2 wings left. You know what I'm saying? But I got 7,300 for these 4 spots. If I wanted to run Sagan and Crosby, I could do it. I'm only down to 6,100. I could throw Atkinson in there. And then if need be, find myself some 5,700 guy. There's Eberle. And there's a lineup. And there's 9,100. If I really, really liked, Pecorini, I could have jumped up to him. And if I don't like this mix and I don't want to go double high at center, maybe I leave Sagan in there and I pick up Radulov. I don't know why I would do that. I'm not real high on Dallas today. Maybe I take a Duquesne out of Ottawa. And maybe I pull Ratty out of there. Who did I take? Did I take Pulock out of there on accident? Shouldn't have done that. And now I'm still looking at 6,500 for 2 wings. That would be, Anders Lee and Hornquist. There you go. If I wanted to, I could put Palmieri in there and leave some money on the table. I could take out Radulov, throw Palmieri in there. Grab some access to New Jersey, double that access up on that power play. And I've still got 200 to play with. This is going to be a real easy build today. I don't know where exactly you're going to go, but I can tell you where I'm likely to be is in these types of names that I just showed you. If I led off with a Brassard. Whoops, I keep pulling Pulock for some reason. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should go get a fortune cookie at lunch today and see if it says, pull Pulock or something like that, in which case I could really use that little bit of help. Say what, Brassard, and let's go McDavid, because it doesn't look like money's going to be hard to come by today. If I went McDavid, I'd probably go immediately to Ratty. If I wanted to throw Hornquist back in there, get my Pittsburgh exposure. Now, I see I'm building a little bit more top-down than I usually do. I usually kind of come from the bottom up, but I already know where my value is, so I can be pretty loosey-goosey with my construction. If I'm looking for somebody under 6K, somebody that I really want to get down in, well, you know what? We haven't seen a Konechny line yet. There's Konechny, and that leaves me 6,100 for, who would that be? Radulov? Atkinson? Is Atkinson 6,600? Somebody in the high fives. I'm not that far away from Mike Hoffman. How would I get Mike Hoffman? It would probably cost me, if I went Gibson down to Allen. Now, if I was going GPP, I'd start stacking. But if I wanted, where did I say I was going to go with that one? Hoffman. Now, I would probably drop Brassard at this point, and I would probably come back up to Duquesne and correlate that line. And well, now I've got to go back down from Allen a little bit. It's going to cost me somebody in here. Well, if it costs me Ratty, that's fine. I'll just pick up Zykov. Now I'm back to having a couple hundred on tail. It's just when you know where your value is, there's all sorts of swaps and swaps and stuff that you can do, and it doesn't really matter. You're going to try and correlate this. I'm just having fun and goofing around. These lineups are all valuable. I mean, hell, if you want to run them, run them. I don't know what they're going to do tonight. I just know that in a lot of cases, we're set up fairly well. If I wanted to run Sidney Crosby and Hornquist, and then we'll get out of here in a second because we're just playing around at this point. I've got access to the 1 in the power play unit. If I wanted to run Duquesne and Hoffman, let's see if I can pull this one off. Nope, I won't be able to get Hoffman. I'll probably be able to get Zingle. There's another deep value play for you. And now at 5,900, if I wanted to come up to Boone Jenner or Konechny, I can probably do Konechny at 59. And then with another 59, I can go back to Jordan Eberle and get access to that game. These are just the things that you can do, and this is with Allen. So, I mean, if I wanted to use Gibson, I'm not going to be able to pull that one off. I'm 300 in the hole now. So I've got to find some value in that 300 in the hole. I'd probably pull Eberle. And what am I at? 5,300-ish. So there's Connor in Winnipeg. Bang. And I'm okay with all these lines and all these combinations. I've got the offenses targeted that I want to target, and really at that point, it's just mixing and matching. So one of the things that we'll talk about maybe another time is how to construct those lineups, because I will do a couple of things. If I only run one lineup tonight, I'll probably be taking some head-to-heads and some 3-man leagues, 5-man leagues, stuff like that, where I can pile up that volume in the one and kind of the safest contests that they have to offer. But if I'm going to run multiple lineups and I'm going to drop into, all of these different combinations, because you can see how easy this was to wind up going crazy with, just grabbing little one-offs from these games and then correlating a little bit here and there. That's the way I like to build my lineups for 50-50s and whatnot. So I can use one lineup and get access to a bunch of different people's lineups with head-to-heads and 50-50s and 3-mans and things like that, and build a little bit of upside in those contests. Or if I'm going to stack a little bit more, go for a little bit of upside, maybe play 100-man leagues or GPPs, then I'm going to build several lineups and hedge that way. Because if I build 3 or 4 lineups with that same core, if the core does well, I'm going to do well. What I don't know is when I'm going to get that exact right mix. And when I get that exact right mix, I'm going to want to get paid on it. And the way I do that is to build 4, 5, 6 lineups or so, and then throw those in, 100-man leagues each, and maybe a couple of GPPs and whatever else. And then when I watch the scores on the night, I see, oh my gosh, the New York game blew up with, New Jersey did well. I had some of those guys, whatever. And then I'm going to just go check, and I had some Philly too, and Philly scored 5, and and then I'm going to go look and say, hey, did I get the right mix? And most of the time we don't. Maybe we get a good enough mix that we end up, hitting the 50-50s. But I'm saying most of the time we don't have the right mix that wins GPPs. That's the hard part. But we can oftentimes get the right mix that gets us over the 50-50 cash lines or gets us over the line in head-to-heads and things like that. And that's what I'll use those lineups for, is, when I'm kind of hedging with multiple lineups, I'm playing a little bit more upside stuff, more tournaments, more higher leagues, 120-man, 100-man leagues. But when I'm only building one lineup and I'm building it really, really safe with a high floor because I really only see one direction to go on the night, that's when you're going to find me in head-to-heads and 3-man leagues and 5-man leagues and things like that I'm competing a little bit more. And why a 5-man league as opposed to a quintuple up? Because I'm going to need a little bit more heavily correlated lineup to hit that quintuple up in hockey. Whereas on a 5-man league, everybody else is going to be stacking too. If your stacks bust and my one-offs do okay, I can win 5-man leagues when I lose the majority of my 50-50s, which is really weird, but it really goes a long way in recovering that damage. So again, if you want that kind of coaching and that kind of explanation stuff, what you need to do is follow the link in the comment section of this video. And what we need to do is we need to talk a little bit more. You need to be a VIP in the Army. You need to come in and take a look at us for baseball as hockey winds down. But honestly, we're going to keep doing a little bit of this out on YouTube. If you get something from it, click like, click subscribe. And then what we'll do is we'll just keep pushing this content forward, and hopefully it gets a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. But the VIPs are always going to get the goods, are always going to get the specific detailed information. So once again, this is Chopadong and this is Chop Talk. Thank you once again for tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow. That'll do it for me. Have a good one.